So from time to time, we'll watch videos in class, or I'll embed them in the links here. You can always find them in the PowerPoints. I'm not going to show them here because I got to put this up on YouTube, and then I get a copyright strike if I'm using somebody else's video, which is definitely what this is. These are somebody else's videos. I'm not monetizing any of these things. If you see an ad, that is YouTube making money off you, not me. Yeah, the university's already made enough, honestly. Anyway, back to reality, back to viruses. So it's hard to say what's a virus. It's easier to say what's a virion. So you remember, a virion is that shell. They can have all kinds of cool shapes. Here are some virions of a long-tailed bacteriophage, and aren't they marvelous? You can see the head is actually hollow. And these have been stained, and the stain has kind of worked its way into the head of some of them, so they're probably empty. And the ones where the head still looks intact, those are probably still full of the virus DNA. And this might even be some virus DNA sort of blobbing out there and down here. All right. So yeah, virions are little shells. There are a few common types, and then there are a whole bunch of weird types. So the common types that you find in the world are going to have a capsid. And so remember, capsid is protein shell on the outside. So the capsid is going to be helical, in the shape of a helix, like a little circle that goes around and around and around and keeps going up, just like a spring. Yeah, just like an old-fashioned telephone cord. Look at that. Helical as can be. You'll have icosahedral ones. If you've ever played a role-playing game, you know, those 20-sided dice and 12-sided dice, actually, both. There are, versions of these viruses that look like both of those. The 20-sided type are more common, but yeah, they're related. And then those will be packaged. They'll have little parts that get sort of loaded in by a motor, or they will just assemble around the virus genome. And remember, the virus genome can be DNA, it can be RNA, and nothing is more offensive to a virology. Well, maybe, than getting the nucleic acid of their favorite virus wrong. So know whether you're talking about a DNA virus or an RNA virus, and be careful with that one, I would say. This picture of a virus was just too cute not to use it twice. Okay, here are some of the weird viruses. These are all human viruses, and these are all what we call enveloped viruses, or sometimes you say enveloped viruses. An envelope is just a membrane, and the membrane is taken from the cell. Sometimes they come from the inside of the cell, like some viruses will steal part of the Golgi apparatus in order to bud, and by budding we mean like steal membrane and form a virion. Some will steal the plasma membrane at the surface. Some will steal multiple membranes, which is like, this is a pox virus over here. They're just little kleptomaniacs. There's our little coronavirus. Look at that. Isn't that adorable? And so you'll have also some others that are both icosahedral, so they're in that organization with essentially 20 sides. And they also have an envelope. Yeah. So that's fairly rare, but it does happen. And some big-time viruses like hepatitis C, dengue virus, Zika virus, yeah. You've probably heard of some of those, and those have that particular organization, as well as a lot of other viruses that I find scarier than those that are all around us / coming to get you. So, oh boy. Let's see. Okay, last bit on this section, let's talk how many viruses. How many viruses? Look at that. It's the night sky and all the stars. This is seawater. And what they've done to the seawater is they have put in a dye that can soak in behind membranes and inside of capsids. And when it meets DNA or RNA, it will light up bright green. And then they used a super sensitive kind of microscope that can sort of pinpoint teeny tiny little pinpricks of light, because viruses are not big. Here's what you get in a little sample of seawater. This guy right here in the circle, that is a eukaryotic cell, probably algae. The middle-sized dots up here are bacteria. So there are about 10 bacteria for every eukaryote in the world, everywhere, maybe a little more than that. All the little tiny dots back here, those are probably all viruses. There are about 10 viruses for every eukaryote and prokaryote in this world. And viruses do not last long. Most viruses are going to break down within a day. And so if there are this many around, it means they have just been made, which means that almost everything is vomiting up brand new viruses all the time because everything out there is a little bit sick all the time. Yeah. And I don't know. I find that thought comforting. Yeah, kind of a we're all in this together sort of thing. But yeah, maybe you find it terrible. I don't know. Whatever. So yeah, total amounts. Any water. If you go to the pond outside my office, if you go to the ocean, if you go up to Greenland and chip a little bit off an iceberg, you'll find there are between 1 million and 100 million virus particles, virions, per milliliter, which is about that much in the water. And if you look in the soil, there are even more, 100 million to a billion per milliliter of soil, like compacted. Even the air you're breathing, 1 to 10 million per cubic meter of air. So every single breath you take, just like the police, every breath you take, you breathe about 200-300 viruses if it's a shallow breath. A little more if you take a nice big deep breath, first thing in the morning. Some of those may be human viruses. That's how you get infected. A lot of those are probably viruses from other things, from bacteria, from the world around us, and they're around us, but they're probably not going to have any effect. So we're swimming in this soup of viruses. Mostly we can't see them, and I think that helps for us not going crazy. But, germaphobes have a point. They're not responding to it in a productive way, but they have a point. There's a lot of stuff out there that you don't want. And there's not a lot you can do with it. It turns out if you take, these are samples of bacteria from a pond core. They sunk this core right down into the center of a pond, past where the oxygen is, past where the methane producers are, down to the layer where they're mostly doing respiration based on sulfur and a little bit of methane. And about 1% of all the bacteria that they can find had actual virus particles in them. Now, you'll go from uninfected to a bacterial cell looking like this in the course of about 15 minutes. So these were just infected while they were dropping the core section down there and pulling it out, and they are about to burst. And all those viruses are going to come out and they're going to infect the next round. So all the time, about 1% of all cells on the planet are infected with viruses. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. You probably have several viruses in you right now. A couple of weird ones that we'll cover later in the class. But even things like cold sores, if you've ever had one, if you ever had chickenpox, or if you had the chickenpox vaccine, in those cases you have viruses that are embedded. They're going to live in your spinal cord until you die. And when you get old, they're going to start to get a little bit antsy, a little bit restless. They're going to start coming out. They're going to start causing mayhem. They contribute to the bad things that happen with aging. I'm not going to say they age you, but they definitely make things worse. And we don't have a good way to get rid of them. All we can do is treat them whack-a-mole style. We can bop them on the head when they start to flare up until they go too far and we can't really do anything. So viruses, you're kind of darned if you do and darned if you don't, because they're going to happen anyway. And they're all around us, and they're inside of you, and they're inside of everything. And they've been called the dark matter of the biosphere, just this thing that is out there and is most of the DNA and most of the just little bits of biology on the planet are individual viruses that only exist to basically parasitize the rest of the living things on the planet. So I don't know that one came before the other, but I know that well, at least the viruses are very dependent on cells, and the cells would probably be fine without viruses, but it's a question of whether viruses would re-evolve even if we got rid of all the ones that we know about. I don't know the answer to questions like that, but they're pretty cool to think about. All right, that's enough for this section. Thanks very much.